I grew up in Anse-à-Veau, Haiti. My name's Margaret, and when I was around 7, 8 years old, I discovered that I could see ghosts. I was always told that I was born with a veil, meaning you had the ability to see ghosts. A veil is when you're born with, it's like a placenta, the sac, it's attached to you. Sometimes it's part of their head, sometimes it's around you. Because everybody has a sac, when you're born. That's the placenta that holds the water. So a lot of people from different countries, Mexico is one of them, they believe in the veil. If you're born with the veil, you have a ability to see things. There was a ghost next door to my house. It was a property that we owned. It was empty property. It used to be a bread factory. And he started appearing to me. And he would show up and he would disappear. And he would do that many, many times a day. I would sit there and watch him. And he would just go in and out, in and out. He would especially appear around 6 o'clock after the bell rings. The church bell would ring around 6. And he would show up religiously. I would see him. He would just switch in and out, in and out. One day my grandma passed by. She saw me staring up there. And she said to me, "You see him too, huh?" I go, "Yeah." So this went on for quite a long time. I was always told not to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, you won't see it. It won't happen. So he started bringing this little boy around. The kid was about 7, 8 years old. And he would just be playing, going up and down around the tree, just playing. And I saw him maybe 8, 10 times. Then the kid would disappear. I never saw him after that. Then I saw a man tied up in a ball hanging from a tree. He looks like his flesh was all dried up, almost like a skeleton. Pretty creepy looking. And then he would show me another man would come along. It was a tiny man, small stature. He was about 5'5", white skin. He was always wearing a blue blazer. And then there was another gentleman there, quite tall. He was about 6'3", 6'4", very tall. He almost looked like one of our relatives, the same type of body statures. And he kept pointing at the yellow mansion, which is just down the road across from us. And he would appear a few times and he would go, and he would appear again, maybe a few more times, and he would keep pointing to the house while he's holding his cane. And then he would disappear, and I never saw him again. The black guy, I believe he was a slave, he kept appearing. This went on for many, many, many months. After a while, I started having bad dreams. He started appearing in my dreams, and each night it was the same dream. I would be in the middle of a forest with a path of big tall trees on both sides. And up and down the road there were big holes, a perfect circle, and underneath, about 30-40 feet down maybe, it was flames, fire. And every time I see this dark shadow, it would be just a regular shadow, like a man, and then it would turn into a bull, like a giant bull, big long horn, maybe like 6 foot across. He was huge. He had this long reddish fur. I mean, really scary, but I never saw his face because I was so busy running. And I'd be running and jumping these holes. which is impossible for someone my size to be jumping over them, but somehow I did. And this went on night after night. Each night, it starts where we left off. With the same figure, the same thing, just chasing every night. So one morning I woke up, there were mud all over my bed. And then my mom cleaned it all up, said nothing. No one said not a word. And the next night I had the same dream over and over. And my mom would put stuff on the door and barricade the door to make sure I don't go outside at night. And still I had these dreams. And there was always a little mud on the floor, on the bed. And then in the morning when I wake up, I didn't have the energy to go to school. I had no appetite. I always had migraines. And this went on for at least a good year or more. And then my aunt took me to a medicine man. And he gave us some potions made out of leaves and whatever. All I remember, that stuff stunk. And it was cold. And it was for protection. And then they rub it all over me before I go to bed at night. I remember that. And one night, as always, in my dream, he starts chasing me again. And I start running and jumping one hole after another, looking at the fire underneath like very scary, horrifying. And one day, while he's chasing me, he decided that he was going to scoop me up, and somehow I was jumping, and then I kicked him and he fell in instead. And I woke up from that dream. Woke up the next day, I didn't have mud. I felt better. I was hungry. I didn't have a headache. I felt much better afterwards. But he was still up on the hill. He took a different form. This time he had a bigger head. He had a hat on. And he kept trying to befriend me, I guess, the way he stared and stared. He always stared. His eyes were always half covered, and they were dark. They were dark and glary, gazy, very scary. And one day, I told him to go away. I forgot what he was telling. I think I told him he was horrifying to me, and I wasn't afraid of him anymore, and he needed to go away. Then he disappeared. And he would glitch in and out, and I would ignore him, not pay attention to him. And then we had the yellow mansion that I mentioned earlier. The great aunt that lived there for years, she was dying. When great aunt was dying, we had to go see her, and she lived in that yellow mansion. And she was the only one there. It was her and her son, nobody else. But when I got there were about 30 people there. And they were all dressed the way the colon dressed. The colonial way. They had the boots with the little buttons, and they had the hairdo. And just standing there looking at me. They were all staring at me. And the man that was up on the hill that kept pointing at the yellow house, he was in the front room. He was just sitting there. And my mother told me to go sit in the front room and wait, because they had her bed in the dining room where she was dying. In the old days, the colon would bring their dying relative to the front room or dining room, and in a big bed, where the whole family can visit. So this is what was happening. I went to the front room, and here was that man that was up there pointing at the house. He looked at me, he goes, "I'm just waiting for her." So, and I looked at my mom, and I was like, "Who are all these people?" She said, "We are the only one here." But I smelled cookies. There's a lady in the kitchen making cookies. She peered at the door and looked at me and smiled. So I told my mom that after we left. I told her about the lady and all the people up on the stairs, and she said there was no one there but us. So we went home that day as always. She always blast me with holy water. And a few days went by, and then I was going to school. And one of the women that were at the house, she opened the gate for me. She was wearing a yellow dress. She had the boots with the buttons. She had the umbrella. She had the colonial hairdo. She looked really nice. She opened the door. She goes, "Hello, Margaret." I didn't say anything. I went to walk, crossed over, I went up to church, and the school was next to the church. I went to school. I come back the next morning. She was there again. This time she didn't talk to me. She just looked at me and backed up, and the gate was locked. I mean, the big 9-foot gate. There's no way no one can get to it. Heavy iron gate. Door open. I go to school. We close the gate. Next day, something happened. And then after a while, she didn't appear anymore. The other woman appeared. The one that was dying in the bed, she was there. She was wearing the same pajamas she died in. He was like, "Hello, Margaret." I said, "Hello." Went to school. I asked my mom, "Didn't she die?" She said, "Yeah." There she was. And one day my sister decided that we were going to go to the house and snoop around, since it was empty and it belonged to the family. So we went in. And she went upstairs. She went halfway. She came running down. I mean, really running down. Head for the front door. And my other sister saw that. She ran after her. And me being the youngest, doll. And then I turn around and I see the rocking chairs rocking. There were 2 rocking chairs in the front room. They were both rocking. And I looked and I saw someone sitting in the chair, just transparent like ice. Just transparent. They're just sitting there. I mean, we ran out of there in a hurry. She was scared. So we got home and told my mom about it. Of course, she got in trouble for going there. We're not allowed to go to that house. That house was alive. And another time, it was in my grandma's house after she passed. Her house was empty. And we went in there and she did the same thing. They ran and left me behind because the chair moved. we were looking for something. And the chair moved. And she got to the door. She ran out of there and just left me again. Then I turned. I did see my grandma. Yeah, I forgot about that. I just saw her for an instant and she zoomed in and out. She never really talked to me or get in touch with me after she passed. I never saw her. Next to the yellow mansion, there was a road that takes me to all my friends and teachers. And I always take a shortcut. Instead of going through town, you go through the forest, And one day, I was going to see my friend, and I was coming back, and I noticed there was a party in the backyard. And nobody's supposed to be there. Nobody's allowed to be there. And none of the people at the party, I didn't know any of them. I didn't recognize them. So I went home, "Oh, Mom, there's people." So we went back. She went back. She sent someone. She sent one of the caretakers to check on the house. There was no one there. And the lady says, "Ghosts." The caretaker says, "Just ghosts." And my mom was really upset saying that because she thought she'd scare me. Well, got big news for her. I've already seen them. But this went on a few times. I would take a shortcut. There was something going on. One time I passed by and there was 5 shadows. It was getting dark and I hear this rustling, it was blowing, wind was blowing, but it wasn't windy. And I got so scared. My legs started going numb. I couldn't move, barely walk, but I made it home somehow. But when I got to the mansion, first window, there were 3 people standing. All you see is the dark shadows outline. There was a tall man and 2 women on the first window. And a couple of feet away, there was a second window. There were 3 men. And they were going, "Wuzzy, Wuzzy, 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 Wuzzy." Wuzzy is a name, childhood name that they call me. It's short for Rose. I'm nervous. Anybody calling my name, and it got really dark. By the time I passed through the corridor, it was already getting dark. And then at the end of it, I saw someone coming, and it was my mom's caretaker. She came looking for me because it was beginning to get really dark. But that was scary in itself. But they all knew my name. They were calling me, and I don't recognize them. So I went home. I was scared. I was really, really scared. So the next day I woke up. I went to school. They were there again. The two of them there in the garden. They all called me, said hello. And I ignored them. I went to school. I come back. And this went on for maybe a year and a half. Every day I go to school, I would see one of them. If I ever took a shortcut, something would happen. Another time, it was a housekeeper, the cookie lady, the one that was looking at me. She looked like a rat at first. And I saw something walking behind me, and it was her. But every time I turned around, she disappeared. And she looked like a rat. And she was the worst one of all. She wanted to arm me. And one time, she pushed me down. I was walking, taking the shortcut. I know she pushed me down. I couldn't possibly fall. So this went on about a year. And then I was supposed to come to the United States. So the night before I left, I went to see a couple of friends to say goodbye. And then on the way home, they were all in the backyard. I shouldn't have taken a shortcut, but I did. And they're all in the backyard calling me again. They're all sitting in different chairs like they were having a dinner party. They're all sitting there calling me, just looking. They're all looking at me, calling me. And then I just ran home. I ran home. I got home. I told my mom about it, and that was the last time. The next day, I was out of Anse-à-Veau into Port-au-Prince. I was gone. She was a clairvoyant. She saw things and knew how to do things and how to get rid of things. And she knew how to know, not so much. I think she was into white magic, maybe. I think she did white magic because this is off, right? There were a big room in the back that had, I don't know if I want to talk about it. Big room in the back that had large pictures of 8 by 10 of different white magic gods. One of them I remember distinctly was called Dumbala. He's supposed to be a white god. And there was some other one, I can't remember their name, but she dabbled in white magic. They had gatherings, dances. People had spirits taking over their bodies during dancing and stuff. This stuff is real. A lot of them were, they foresee the future. They can tell you if somebody's going to die. They can tell you if somebody's going to die or if you're going to get really sick. And they can also heal the sick. There's a two type of voodoo, which is the white magic she was into, and there was the dark voodoo that she was totally against, because that's when the chicken's head comes off and the blood splatter and things happens. But she was into white magic. She didn't like it. She stayed away from it, and she kept us away from it. And of course, by the time I came around, because I was born late in life, my grandma was already in her 70s. She wasn't doing this anymore. But she used to, and so did one of my aunt, the youngest daughter, Leon. She's what they call a conzo. She's been chosen by a certain spirit, but it was never discussed. It's something that they did when it had to be done. It wasn't done all the time. It was like certain holidays, I guess their birthdays, the spirits' birthdays or whatever, they would have like an altar loaded with food. And there would be like popcorn, baked chicken, cakes galore, all kinds of sweets. It'd be just hundreds of dollars worth of food just as an offering, you know. And it
How
would sit there for a couple of days and then you throw it away.
mother participated anyways, even though she didn't want
Mm-mm,
to.
she didn't. Her sister did. The youngest sister and my grandma did. My mother was pretty much out of it. But she was always in and out of the country. She wasn't around. She was afraid of magic. She was afraid of ghosts. So,
Did your father know anything about this?
he was the same way. He stayed away from this. But since we moved around, 1 minute we were over grandma's. We all 3 houses in a row. So we would share the same backyard, and these back houses were huge. They were like forests. There were little like bungalows in the backyard where that thing takes place. Not in the house or the backyard, further out. The property was like 30 acres. Yeah, oh yeah, the property is so big. It's. But there was also houses in the country where the big stuff takes place that we never go to. One time I went to visit. Me and my sister were visiting. There was nothing going on. There was no magic going on. Just a regular night. We went there for a couple of days to spend some vacation weeks. I think it was a couple of days for our vacation. Summer vacation it was. And we all went to bed early that night. And I saw lights. I saw a bunch of lights outside. Fire, like there was a fire out there, and there were people dancing, singing and dancing. And this one woman, I saw her eye to eye. She looked at me, I looked at her. She looked real. So it just got through raining. So I ran outside. I want to join the party. Hey, what are they doing? I want to know what they're doing. And I ran out there, and there was nobody, not a soul. And my sister heard the front door, because the front door was like 10 feet tall. It makes a lot of noise when you open and close it. She heard me out there. She came out and grabbed me. There was not a soul. Yet I saw them. They were out there. The property was very haunted.
Do you know why it was haunted?
Well, from the 1700 on, when the colons came to Anse-à-Veau, they lived there for years, and they had slaves. Of course, the slaves practiced black magic. There was always something going on, and I think there was a lot of it. It's kind of intertwined. Uh, One of the slaves had poisoned the master's daughter or something. There was something like that going on. And there was my father's first wife who died. I told you about that. She was crossing the water, and she had like 4 feet long hair, very long hair. And just when she was in the middle of the crossing, because the water was so wide, she couldn't get away. And this huge dead tree came by, and her hair got caught and intertwined into it. And they found her body the next day. She drowned because she couldn't get away because of her long hair. And they always say she's on the property. I've seen her. We were told never go upstairs. It was a beautiful room upstairs. You couldn't resist it. It was made up. They had porcelain all around. It was figurine. It was just a kid heaven. It was a beautiful room. I go up there one time. Water's always running. Water runs all the time. Sometimes it comes through into the boutique. We had a boutique downstairs. It was a fabric store, and the water would come down. And one time I go up there she was sitting in the rocking chair, just sitting there looking at me and smile. And I walked over to the bathroom. I turned off the water. I went back down. And it was about a few months later, I went up there again. She was in the bed. Her ghost never left the house, never left the property. She's in there all the time. But she wasn't hunting. Yeah, the water. Water's always running. Because, she drowned to death. That was pretty sad. Very pretty girl. She was very young when she died. She was about 27. They never had children. My dad never talks about her, but the housekeeper told me a lot. You find more from the housekeeper than you do from your own parents.
Our grandfather was very wealthy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of money. And he was very charitable. He gave it away, literally. He gave everything away. He gave away properties. He built school. He did a lot for Anse-à-Veau. For many years. So did his father before him. I saw my dad once after he passed. I think it was a couple of days later. He was coming up the hill. And I look up, I go, oh, Dad's coming. Because I always, every time he's coming up the hill, I know he's coming over. So I always tell everybody, he's coming. And I turn around and he was sitting in the front. And how could he possibly get from there to here so fast? And then I was like, oh, that's right, he passed. And everybody's looking at me like, don't you remember Dad's gone? Oh, that's right, he's gone. When somebody just died, you forget they're dead. It happened to me a lot. Somebody would die and 2-3 days later, you forget they're dead. And then he disappeared after that. I never saw him. I've seen him in dreams. I think he's visited me in dreams, but I never saw him. I never saw my mom either. So, some people don't want to be seen. Or they've crossed over, I don't know. Yeah, because I used to be scared of ghosts. I used to say, I don't want to see you, go away. I used to do that a lot. I felt like it's coming. I would say, I don't want to see you, I don't want to see you. I've always done that.